Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and I want to talk about ethics today. So, have you ever considered things like why do salespeople need to develop their own codes of ethics? I mean, it sounds kind of like an interesting concept, but to me, if you own something, you're probably going to put more into it. So, what do you think? Do salespeople really need to develop their own codes of ethics? And in the sales world, what ethical responsibilities do salespeople have towards themselves, their firms, and their customers? We interact with salespeople all the time in different capacities, but where are their responsibilities? And do ethics get in the way of being a successful salespeople? You hear all the time about people who make a really big sale, or maybe they're bragging about making a sale, but sometimes could they be making more sales if they would just act a little unethically? Good question, right? And then what kinds of guidelines are out there and laws related to selling? You know, we are all salespeople, as I continue to say, and success is about really understanding, you know, what it is that you're in, what it is that you're doing, and thinking about bigger pictures. I think about my actions all the time because I've made mistakes in the past, and that's part of the human experience. And sometimes we take on best practices or habits that we observe of other people, and we do it without really thinking about consequences of those actions. I mean, we may see people getting away with doing certain things like lying or cheating or deceiving, and we don't necessarily see what happens after that because we're only living in our own lives. What's really kind of interesting about ethics is, I mean, it really is a personal thing. What you may think is unethical, I may think is ethical, or vice versa. You know, and so we really have to be clear about understanding what right from wrong is. And then when you go to other countries, we need to realize that ethical perspectives will even vary even more. And the same thing is true from industry to industry. So ethics really are very, very personal. We have to understand what ethics really is, and we need to make sure what the ethical dimensions are, you know, in every situation that we're in. You know, ethics have changed a lot in the sales industry. You know, it used to be, before the 1930s, selling was really all about making personal sales. It was pretty much a short-term deal. People didn't think about long-term things, and essentially salespeople were, you know, representatives of the manufacturer. Their job was simply to take orders and deliver goods. We have continued to progress over time, and it's kind of evolved with technology and the needs of organizations. It used to be that organizations were spread out far apart, and so salespeople really kind of naturally had customers land in their laps for their products or service. Now there are a lot more manufacturers and providers of products and services, so in the selling industry, we've had to really change the way that we do things. Rather than just making sales, we have progressed into satisfying customers' needs and actually building relationships. It used to be a short-term need. Let me fill this need for you. Now it's really all about building long-term relationships and making sure that the customer always has what they need. And we've evolved into being not only a problem solver as salespeople, you know, and that's kind of the need for in sales, is recognize what problem are you solving, and then making sure that you're helping create value with your product or service that you're doing, so that you're selling. And so you really recognize who your customers are, what they need, and how what you have to offer can create added value for that. I mean, sometimes it's about being able to match what a competitor is bringing, or sometimes it's about helping people understand the nuances and differences and giving some alternatives and compatibility issues. Maybe it goes along with something else that they need or that they're already currently using. So I'm famous for saying, we're all in sales. We're all selling our ideas. We're all all of us probably are going to be in a job interview a few times in our life, and really recognizing our product, if it's a job interview, what it is that you have to offer, and recognizing the value that you can bring above other people, and then recognizing what kind of problems that you may be solving. So very often, what is a real killer for organizations is people who are being unethical in the selling process. It's about manipulating people, making people think that they have limited other choices, and really trying to pressure people into buying something that they don't need. Good salespeople recognize that not everybody is their customer, but they all have links to other people or connections to other people that they can influence, to do it. And I know that if a salesperson came to me and I didn't need a product, but they weren't pushing it on me, but I liked them, or I knew other people that could use the product or sell services, I know that I could recommend that person, because there's a relationship that makes me feel like that person is worthy of me giving my personal promotion to. So good, ethical salespeople learn the art of persuasion. They recognize that all the power really belongs to the customer. They get to choose whether or not they want to buy it or not. And they don't feel pressured into buying it, but they really believe that they can gain the benefits from that product or service. And too often, unfortunately, organizations get so focused on increasing sales and revenues that very often they hire people who do unethical things in order to meet those sales objectives or meet those goals. And goals are really an interesting thing. What we believe and what we want need to be in alignment with what we can do. And so there's a lot of different things that affect our own personal behaviors when we're in sales. What are your personal goals? That probably is the strongest thing. And what are your ethics? What are you willing to do in order to make a sale, and where's the line? Crossing a line on doing something that you sell yourself out, it probably makes you a little bit weak. And then, what do people think about you? And so social norms really matter. So when it comes right down to it, I believe that people who are highly effective in any organization have high personal codes of ethics. They're not liars, they're not cheaters, they're not manipulators, but they really want what's best for a customer, and they have the effective communication skills to really help people see the value of that product or service. And that means being assertive and not aggressive. It means really understanding what the goals are of your customer or your potential customer or prospect. And really working within company policies. You don't want to get fired for doing something unethical and losing your job. That's an expensive lesson learned. But you do need to make sure that you understand what your company goals are, and then also what the laws are. And that's very important. You don't want to get arrested, or you don't want to be fined for doing something unethical. But when it comes right down to it, As salespeople, you truly have to understand who you are, what's important to you, and recognize the big picture of what happens beyond, making that particular sales. So very often companies have objectives like increasing profits, increasing sales, reducing costs of selling, building long-term relationships so those revenues are consistent, and then avoiding struggle. Ultimately, salespeople really must satisfy the customer in order to gain long-term sales, and which will actually reduce the costs. You want to make sure that as a salesperson you maintain a personal code of ethics. The more sales you make, generally speaking, the more money that you make. And very often in organizations you receive recognition for doing that. And so the bottom line is really being very good at solving customers' problems, satisfying their needs, ultimately reduces costs. You put a lot of time and energy into finding new customers, when if you really invested that time in making sure that your customers that you have are completely satisfied, you're probably in the longer run going to be meeting all your personal goals and your organizational goals too. Very often we don't consider the long-term effects of being unethical. But you don't want to lose respect of other people. You don't want to lose self-respect and self-confidence. That's one of the most important things. You need to always make sure that you are doing the right thing for the right reasons, because ultimately you have to live with yourself. If you are seeing people who are doing unethical practices, don't get caught being unethical with them. Don't do it. Make sure that you recognize that just because other people are doing things that are wrong, that it doesn't make it right. So sometimes we like to justify our behaviors by comparing ourselves to other people. You're the only one that's accountable for yourself. I like to think of thinking before you act. I think is one of the most powerful things that you do. What would happen if a customer found out about your behavior? You'd probably be embarrassed. What about your boss? Whenever I do anything, I think about my boss over my shoulder. Would he or she approve or disapprove of this? Would most salespeople think that what you're doing is unusual? Sometimes we think we can do something because we can get away with it. You're taking a risk. But how do you feel about taking those kinds of risks when it's unethical? Or what are the costs of upsetting another person? You probably have heard me say, if you've watched other videos, relationships are fragile. And then there's the piece about your family and friends. You need to earn the respect of your family and friends, and then you need to maintain it. So personal relationships, are built upon doing ethical actions all the time. What would happen if your actions were captured in a newspaper or television article? If that happened, your reputation could be ruined, and our relationships and reputations are truly fragile. Recognize that relationships with customers are a gift. You don't own a customer, so don't deceive customers by telling half-truths or withholding important information or being manipulative. Bribes are something that happen all the time in some organizations. Don't pay people to influence your situation, or even give kickbacks, payments based on certain orders. You need to make sure that relationships are strong with other people, and you're going through things by doing things the right way. Give everybody special treatment. If you're seen doing one thing as a favor to one customer and you're not doing it with another one. Ultimately, that will upset the customer. So make sure that you recognize how your actions are being perceived and be fair and equitable, because I think in the longer run, by treating everybody like they're special, you're going to help build a longer term relationship. If something is confidential, it really means you need to keep it confidential. That means don't be untrustworthy by sharing things that were meant to be between you and the customer, and don't engage in conversations with other people by sharing information that you're not supposed to be sharing. So don't do these things. Don't exaggerate the benefit of a product or blame other people or other things for something else that someone else did. Don't lie about product availability, or don't misrepresent a guarantee. These things happen all the time. Don't lie about the competition, and make sure that you're selling products that people actually need. Make sure that when you say things, or saying things that are truthful, and don't make oral promises that are not legally binding just to get people to buy things. So when someone is really not interested in buying your product or service, you need to show people that kind of respect, or it truly is unethical. Make sure that if you don't know the answer, that you help get them the answer rather than make a guess, or by giving them inaccurate information, and never sell a product or service to anybody that is hazardous. These things are highly unethical. Do make sure that you are always doing the right thing for the right reason, because it will catch up to you. There are salespeople who will steal potential customers from other salespeople. How would that make you feel if that happened to you? What do you think your reputation will be if that's the kind of person that you are? If there are trade secrets that are out there, you need to keep them trade secrets. Don't be sharing information that you're not supposed to be sharing. Never criticize a competitor's product. There's customers who are loyal to those other brands, and you need to respect those. You talking falsely about a competitor's product or service is unethical and illegal. It just doesn't look good when you are speaking badly about another person for that sake, or a competitor. Make sure that you are fully aware of the laws that are being passed, and making sure that even when other people are breaking a law, that you are at least doing the right thing at the right time. So recognize some common titles of salespeople. Agents are the people in an organization who acts in place of a company. If you can make decisions on behalf of an organization, you are an agent. Selling is simply transferring goods from a seller to a buyer. A contract to sell is about an offer. An invitation to negotiate is a sales presentation, perhaps. And when you make an offer, it's you are giving specific prices and terms, and so with that, people place orders. And that's what you want. You ultimately want to make sure that you are making a sale in an ethical way. You're not using sales puffery to make unreliable statements about a product or service, that you're not making false claims, and that making sure that you are being credulous, and recognizing that if you say something that you're not intentionally trying to misrepresent things or say things in a way that a reasonable person can understand whatever that statement is. So do make sure that you are being lawful in what it is that you're doing and ethical. It's the right thing to do all the time. You know, don't do anything that could get you in trouble in the long run. Be very clear about what the laws are, what the company policies are. Don't be tempted in order to make a goal to go and do something that is unethical. In the longer run, it probably will get you one way or another. You know, do the right thing for the right reasons. Ultimately, you know, fast is slow and slow is fast. By doing the right thing in every situation, you're probably going to find that you build more meaningful relationships, which gives better word of mouth from those satisfied customers, which ultimately helps you grow your business. So I know I've given you a lot on ethics in selling, and I hope that you've at least taken away some little bit. Maybe it's just a review for you, but remember, being ethical is really understanding what the right thing is in that community or with other people, and then making sure that you're always being honest and upfront, and you're helping provide added value because you understand what that value is with your customer or prospect. Thank you so much for your valuable time in watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr.